72 hours before the sheriff was scheduled to set my life on the sidewalk, a billionaire offered me $25,000 to be his girlfriend. Would you have said yes if that meant keeping a roof over your head, even if it meant lying to people who didn't deserve it? I did. And it saved me, then almost wrecked me, and maybe it rebuilt me into someone I could stand to be. Picture this with me because I can still smell the dust in the air. My apartment was stripped down to bones, no curtains, no couch, just a mattress on the floor, a folding chair, a cardboard box I'd promoted to coffee table, and an eviction notice that shook in my hands like it weighed 10 pounds. 3 days. 72 hours until the sheriff would come, until my things would sit on the curb, and my neighbors would walk past, pretending not to see. If it were you, what would you have done? 6 months earlier, I was coordinating corporate galas and society weddings. My calendar looked like success, my inbox sounded like applause. Then Monica, my business partner, and apparently my blind spot, disappeared overnight with $60,000 of client deposits. Yeah, that happened. Lawsuits hit like hail. Judges didn't care that I didn't know the contracts, said partners were jointly liable, so goodbye bank accounts, goodbye credit score, goodbye reputation. I sold my car, my jewelry, my grandmother's dining table. You know, the one piece of furniture that feels like family. And I lived on rice and canned beans, until rice and canned beans felt like a personality trait. Dignity became something you take off before sleep and hope to find again in the morning. So when my phone rang and a crisp voice said, "Hello, Miss Sutton. This is Elizabeth Park, calling on behalf of Mr. Gideon Blackwell," I almost let it go to voicemail. Unknown number meant debt collectors most days. This one was different. Mr. Blackwell would like to meet tomorrow at 10 a.m. to discuss a business proposition. Are you available? I said yes before the fear could roll its eyes at me. I pulled out the one good dress I hadn't sold. Emerald green, a gift from my grandmother Ruth. A woman who believed kindness was more important than success and still made the best biscuits on this planet. The dress still fit. It still felt like hope you could zip up. Blackwell Tower was the kind of building that makes you want to stand a little taller, glass and steel, and money security desks that smile without smiling. Elizabeth met me in the lobby like we were old friends and took me up to the 52nd floor, past art that didn't try to impress, past hallways that smelled like leather and lemon oil. Then she opened a door, and there he was, hands in his pockets, staring out at the skyline like he'd ordered it. Gideon Blackwell. 6 feet of presence and a mind you can feel in the room. Broad shoulders, dark brown skin, with that evening glow even at 10 a.m. Close-cut hair, with a little gray at the temples that made him look like trust and control had a baby. Navy suit that fit like a promise. But it was his eyes that got me. Not just the color, the focus, like he edited sentences before speaking them. "Miss Sutton, thank you for coming. Please sit." I sat carefully on leather that probably had a last name. No small talk. "I'll be direct," he said, voice deep and steady. "I need to hire you for a weekend. My sister is getting married in Napa Valley next month. I need a date." I blinked, waiting for the punchline. "You want to hire me as your date, not a date? A girlfriend. The kind of girlfriend who can read a room, handle my family, and make this weekend about my sister, not me. You coordinated 2 events for my company last year. You were flawless. You're professional. You won't confuse business for anything else." I wanted to laugh, I really did, but what came out was the kind of sound you make when life changes lanes without signaling. He slid a folder across the desk. Confidentiality, expectations, compensation. I'm prepared to pay $25,000 for Friday evening through Sunday night. First-class travel, 5-star accommodations, wardrobe allowance. Half up front. You know that click you feel when a decision stops being hypothetical and becomes a hand you can grab? That's what happened. 25 grand wasn't freedom, it was oxygen. That amount meant back rent, a shot at rebuilding credit, groceries with fresh produce that crunch when you bite them. But in the footnotes of my heart, there was another price. Lying to good people, pretending to care for money, risking something I didn't know I still had. Why me? I asked, and I hated the tremor in my voice. Because you're calm under pressure, he said. Because you're articulate and gracious. Because you make hard things look easy. And because I'm not interested in complicated emotions. I want control. Elizabeth parked me in a glass conference room with a view that made the city look like a model train set. I read every word of the contract, looking for traps. It was cold, not cruel. Affectionate, but appropriate. No social media. NDA forever. Termination if either party crossed a line. Half, now half at completion. It was business, which is why it felt so personal. When I came back, he was typing, but I could tell he was waiting. Questions. Just one, I said. When do I start? 4 weeks, he said. Twice a week until then to build a believable backstory. Elizabeth will wire your first payment today. Later that night, the deposit lit up my phone like a sunrise. I paid my landlord. I filled a grocery cart with grown-up food. I stood at my sink eating strawberries and laughing and crying at the same time because relief and shame weigh about the same when you carry them alone. If it were you, be honest. Would you have taken the deal? The next 4 weeks felt like a rehearsal for a play where the audience is your conscience. We met in a coffee shop that smelled like warm bread and second chances, then in a booth at a restaurant where the tables were close enough to swallow secrets. We built history the way you build a sturdy lie, from details. Where we met Morrison Tech Summit, how he spilled coffee on my notes, how we laughed about it and exchanged numbers, how we'd been dating 6 months, taking it slow. But in between the invented things, true stories kept slipping out. I told him about my grandmother raising me after my parents died when I was 7, about her kitchen rules, and her Sunday hugs about the dining table I sold, and how that felt like pawning my memories. He told me about his father, a mechanic who worked with grease under his nails, and a quiet pride, and his mother, a school teacher who stretched dollars into opportunities. He told me about the engagement that ended 3 years ago, about a woman named Veronica who loved the lifestyle more than the man. He didn't say her name like a knife, he said it like an old scar you only notice in certain light. You know what I mean? The day before we left for Napa, 3 garment boxes arrived at my building with my name printed like I belonged among monograms. Dresses, blouses, linen pants that drifted when I walked, pajamas too soft to be legal. Everything fit perfectly. The note said, "Everything is yours to keep. See you tomorrow." G. I hung the emerald dress from my grandmother next to a ruby red cocktail dress that probably cost more than my rent used to. 2 lives on one hanger breathing the same air. The jet looked like a movie set. Cream leather polished wood, a flight attendant who poured sparkling water into crystal glasses and made it look normal. Gideon glanced up from his laptop, and that tight smile finally cracked into something real. "Right on time," he said. "Sit anywhere." We ran our lines at 40,000 feet. We smoothed our backstory until it felt like something that really could have happened. We practiced the casual touches couples do without thinking. The hand on the back, the lean in the wolf of a smile you only show one person in a room. It felt like choreography, but something in my chest was already off script. We landed at Silverleaf Vineyards, which is a place I would call heaven, if heaven had better landscaping. Rows of grapes like green handwriting on rolling hills, A main villa with stone walls and glass that reflected sky cottages tucked into olive groves like secrets. Our cottage had 2 bedrooms. He pointed. Left is yours, right is mine. Clean lines, respectful distance. It should have let me breathe easier. It didn't. Dinner with the family was a whirl of names and smiles that didn't feel fake. Rebecca, his sister, has eyes that mirror Gideon's, except hers throw confetti. She hugged me like we'd been texting for weeks. Patricia, his mother, hugged me like mothers do when they decide you're safe. Lawrence, his father, shook my hand with a grip that said, "Welcome, and beware of hurting my kid." The groom Thomas was kind without trying. His parents were old money without the allergy to warmth. Jeremy, the groom's brother, smiled like he collected reasons to be proud of himself. Gideon stayed close. A palm on my back, a thumb along my knuckles, a quiet question whispered at my ear that made me laugh. That part was performance, but my laughter wasn't. Then Patricia, between bites of salmon, tilted her head and asked the one thing we hadn't rehearsed. "What do you love most about my son?" Everything went quiet inside me. I could have picked a safe trait: ambition, generosity, leadership. You know the list. But the truth arrived before I could spin it. "He's thoughtful in ways most people don't notice," I said. "He sees small things and treats them like they matter. And he's loyal to his people even when he forgets to say it out loud." Patricia's smile shifted from hello to "I see you." "That's my boy," she said. And I felt a pressure I didn't expect, like I was taking something I hadn't earned. Later on our terrace under a sky thick with stars, he handed me a glass of wine, and that careful voice softened. "Thank you," he said, "for how you handled tonight. Your family's easy to love," I said, and that was when the guilt started digging roots. Lie to a stranger, you feel bad. Lie to a kind person, you feel worse. Lie to a kind family that hugs. That's a different kind of heavy. "Sometimes I forget I have a family," he said, looking out at the vines. "Work makes it easy to forget the obvious." "Work makes a lot of things easy," I said, "until it makes everything hard." Something shifted in the space between us. Not a wall, not yet. A new gravity. "We should sleep," he said at the same time I said it, and we laughed, and then we did. And it was the first night in months where my body wasn't braced for bad news. Morning tasted like pears and sunlight. We walked to the tasting room with our fingers laced, because couples do, and if you practice long enough, your body forgets the difference. The vineyard's sommelier explained tannins and notes and French oak barrels while Jeremy slid up beside me like a handsome raccoon. Event coordinator, he grinned, sounds stressful. I smiled the way women do when it's not worth a fight. It can be, but when it comes together, it's magic. He leaned in. "If you ever get bored of Mr. Serious," Gideon appeared with that nice voice men use before they pick up a chair. "She's with me," he said, hand at my back, and Jeremy drifted away into someone else's conversation. After the tasting, we ate lunch on a patio that looked over a view you'd pay to dream about. Thomas told a story about Rebecca crying at commercials. Patricia told one about Gideon taking apart radios at 5 and reassembling them with extra parts. Everyone laughed, and I laughed too, and somewhere in there my heart took one step closer to the line we'd promised not to cross. In the afternoon, we drove to a small town that sells postcards that look like themselves. Ice cream, a park bench, kids screaming at a fountain, like Happiness Hurts a bookstore, where I lost an hour in the watercolor section. He bought the book I couldn't stop touching. "You didn't have to," I said. "I wanted to," he said, and his voice made wanted sound like a good word again. That night on the terrace, we sat too close and didn't pretend it was an accident. He asked, "What you said about me last night, did you mean it?" I said yes without thinking, and I felt the relief move through him like exhaling after a long time underwater. "Most people only see the company," he said. not the person under it. Maybe you don't let them, I said. Maybe it's easier that way, but lonelier. He nodded. We didn't kiss that night. We did something harder. We told the truth and then tried to sleep knowing it was in the room with us. Stick around because what happened next will blow your mind. The rehearsal dinner felt like a victory lap we hadn't earned. Candlelight toasts that made people dab their eyes with napkins that cost more than my rent, Rebecca practically glowing from the inside. I was relaxed maybe for the first time since the first lawsuit, and then the doors opened and the temperature shifted like a storm rolled in. She walked in with perfect posture and a black dress that knew its job. Pale skin, dark hair, a smile that didn't reach anywhere real. Veronica. I didn't know her yet, but I knew her type. Women who call themselves honest when they mean sharp. People who break things and call it truth, Veronica Gideon said, and his voice went flat enough to skate on. She scanned the room until she landed on us, then she smiled like she'd won a bet. I heard about the wedding, she said. I wanted to stop by and offer my congratulations. Rebecca stood up, her kindness wrapped in steel. This is a family event, she said. I don't remember inviting you. Veronica tilted her head at me. And you must be the new girlfriend. How lovely. Her eyes walked me like a red carpet. What's your name again? Ariel, I said, standing because my grandmother raised me with manners and a spine. How interesting, she said, her smile sharpening. You know, Gideon used to be so easy to read. But now I'm not sure what I'm seeing. A serious relationship, right in time for a family wedding. Very convenient. Almost like, what's the word? A business arrangement. It was a small room and a big silence. My stomach dropped so fast, the rest of me needed a minute to catch up. Gideon's jaw set like a lock. You need to leave, he said, quieter than anger, louder than calm. Thomas stepped in to call security. Veronica shrugged like chaos bored her. Just a tip, sweetheart, she said to me, voice sweet enough to rot teeth. Next time someone confronts you about your relationship, don't go pale. Real girlfriends don't. She walked out, and the room exhaled around the mess. We lasted as long as polite people are required to last. Then we walked back to the cottage under a sky full of stars that didn't care about human drama. He poured a drink he hadn't touched all weekend and stared into it like it might solve something. I'm sorry, he said. I should have anticipated she'd try something. You can't control every variable, I said. Tomorrow is Rebecca's day. We make it perfect. Then we deal with everything else. You'd still do that after that stunt. Yes, I said. Because she deserves it. And because your family has been nothing but kind. You protect people who show you grace. He set the glass down untouched. You're remarkable, he said. I'm practical, I said, because remarkable felt like a borrowed dress. He shook his head. No. Remarkable. We walked out to the terrace because the room couldn't hold what we were carrying. Vines glowed silver. The night was a soft hand on the back. He said, when I hired you, I wanted control, not feelings. But somewhere in there, it stopped being fake for me. That's dangerous, I said. We have a contract. I know what we have, he said, stepping close enough for heat to become a character. Tell me the truth. Does this feel like pretending to you? I could have lied. I didn't. No. I'm going to kiss you now, he said. And he waited a breath to make room for my no. I didn't use it. The kiss wasn't fireworks. It was a door opening, and the rush of air when the pressure equalizes. It was quiet and deep and honest, in a way we hadn't let ourselves be. When we pulled apart, the world was still there, but it had changed jobs. The wedding was beauty that didn't feel earned, and joy that absolutely was. Rebecca came down the aisle like a walking prayer, Thomas cried in a way that made every man in that row breathe through their noses. Patricia and Lawrence held hands. like they remembered every hard year and were grateful it led here. Gideon's toast was simple and perfect. "Rebecca," he said, voice catching, "you're the best person I know. Thomas, take care of her. She cries at commercials and puts hot sauce on ice cream. We love her like that. Love her like that." We danced, his hand warm, my head on his shoulder for one song, and then another, a bubble in a room full of bubbles. Then I saw her. Veronica back in the tent like the universe wanted a sequel. She waited, then cut between couples with that smile that means someone's about to break a glass. "May I cut in?" she asked. "No," Gideon said. "Just one dance," she said. "We should talk." "Fine," I said before I could stop myself. "But I'm staying right here." I stood at the edge of their sway like the chaperone of my own heart. She leaned in close enough to pretend she wasn't performing. "Did you know," she purred, "that your girlfriend is broke? Lawsuits, debts, the whole tragic story. It would be a shame to get fooled again. The thing about a truth used as a weapon is it cuts cleaner." My hands went cold. Gideon's eyes never changed. "Her finances aren't your business," he said. "I'm trying to help," she cooed. "You deserve better than a girl who needs you for your money." "You mean like you," he said, and I watched the mask slip for the first time. "Dance is over. Stay away from us." We stepped out into the night because sometimes choosing dignity means stepping away from the music. "I'm sorry," he said. "You didn't deserve that." "She's not wrong about the facts," I said. "I am broke. I did fail. But I'm not here for your money." "I know," he said. "I don't care who knows how this started. What I feel now is real." "Not tonight," I said. "Not at your sister's wedding." We pasted our smiles back on and finished the night, sent the couple off. Under sparklers, cheered until the car was tail lights and laughter. Later in our cottage, there was a knock. Patricia and Lawrence. Parents don't sleep when their children are crying. Patricia sat hands folded like a prayer she didn't know how to say. "Veronica told us some things," she said. "We'd like the truth from you." Gideon didn't try to shape the air. "It's true," he said. "I hired Ariel to be my girlfriend for the weekend. I was tired of the pressure. I wanted the focus on Rebecca. I'm sorry." Patricia closed her eyes, and in that second, I understood what disappointment looks like when it's built on love. Lawrence's jaw set. "You brought a stranger into our family," Patricia said, voice breaking, "and let us believe she was one of us." "It wasn't all a lie," I said, standing because shame sits. "I took the money. I made a terrible decision. I was 3 days from being homeless, and I did what I thought I had to do. But what I feel now, that part is real." "How can we believe anything you say?" Lawrence asked. "Not cruel, just honest." "You can't," I said. "Not tonight. But I'll keep telling you anyway." Patricia stood like the room had become too small. "I need air," she said, and she stepped onto the terrace, the door closing softly behind her. Lawrence looked at his son like a man who wants his child to be better than him, and is suddenly not sure how to teach it. "Rebecca will be devastated," he said. "We'll tell her after the honeymoon," Gideon answered, steady. "Let her have this." When they left, the quiet rang. "I should go," I said. "Your parents will never trust me. You'll always wonder." "Give it time," he said. "Give us time. You'll remember I took money to play girlfriend," I said. "When things get hard, you'll wonder." "I won't," he said. "But I didn't trust us enough to borrow his certainty." "I'm sorry," I said, and I packed. He knocked at 3 a.m. Hair a mess shirt, untucked, eyes honest. "They're hurt," he said, "but they don't hate you. My mother is angrier at me than at you. Let's start over. No contract, no money, no pretending. Just us dating like normal people." "We're not normal people," I said, and it came out meaner than I meant. "You're a billionaire CEO. I'm rebuilding from nothing," so what he said softly. Do you want me? Not my world, not my money. Me. I need to think, I said, which was the truest thing I had. Morning was gold and cruel. I rolled my suitcase into the living room. He was still on the couch like the night never ended. You're really leaving, he said. I think it's best, I said. Best for who he asked. The knock saved me. Patricia, may I speak to you? She asked, and I followed her onto the terrace where the world looked too pretty for messy hearts. I was up all night, she said. I realized I've been pushing my son for years to find someone to give me grandchildren to fit my timeline. I made him feel like being single meant he was failing me. That's on me. You were desperate. That's not an excuse, but it is a reason. It doesn't make lying right, but it makes forgiveness possible. I stared at the vines because looking at her felt like staring into the sun. I don't deserve your forgiveness, I said. None of us deserve grace, she said, taking my hand like mothers do. That's what makes it grace. Stay. Not here, not at this resort, but in the city. Date my son properly. If it fails, but don't let fear write the ending for you. What about Lawrence? I asked. Rebecca, Lawrence will follow my lead, she said. Rebecca will be angry, then she'll understand. We're a family. We survive the truth. I carried my suitcase back inside and set the handle down. I'll stay, I said to Gideon. No promises. We try. He crossed the room like a man who finally saw a door open and pulled me in like a person who'd learned the difference between control and care. Thank you, he said into my hair. We'll do this right. Back in the city, I called people who could have ignored me. Some did, some didn't. I ate dinner on my floor with him, a carton of Kung Pao chicken between us, our knees touching our laughter, reminding me I wasn't done becoming. He asked me to help him build a foundation, to support people like past me. Micro grants, resume clinics, career coaching, small bridges over big holes. I said I'd only do it with a proper salary boundaries and the right to argue with him in meetings. He smiled. I expect to lose those arguments, he said. I decided to pay him back the $25,000. He didn't need the money. I did it anyway. Automatic transfers every month like a woman paying for a chapter she didn't want to reread. It wasn't about dollars. It was about dignity. 6 weeks later, Rebecca came back from her honeymoon with a tan and a look that said she knew. We sat down for dinner, and Gideon told her not the sanitized version, the full thing, like a man who decided to live without spin. She listened. Then she turned to me. Do you love my brother? She asked. Yes, I said, voice small and big at the same time. Then I forgive you both, she said. Just don't lie to me again. That's how real families do it. Accountability with arms wide open. Months turned into a life. The foundation found a building, and then a waiting room full of people who smelled like worry. We set up a pantry where clients choose their own food, because dignity grows where choice lives. We paid a utility bill here, a car repair. There wrote resumes that didn't apologize for non-traditional paths, placed women in jobs that let them buy strawberries without checking the price. Every time I watched someone take a deep breath that didn't hurt, I thought about the red cocktail dress and the contract and how survival is complicated and sacred. We went back to Napa when summer leaned into fall. He took me to the exact spot under the olive tree where we first told a scary truth, and he said my full name like he was blessing it. Then he knelt, and the ring in his hand was emerald with diamonds, but all I saw was his face. 9 months ago, he said, I hired you to pretend. Now I'm asking you to choose me for real. Will you marry me? I said yes through tears and laughter, and that kind of relief you only feel when the gamble you took on yourself turns out to be love. We kept the wedding small, family, a few friends, a cake that tasted like lemon, and laughter. There was no dramatic interruption, no slow clap from the villain, just the hum of people who'd decided to believe in us again. Patricia hugged me like she had that first night, but tighter. Lawrence toasted and said, "Thank you for seeing the man, and not the money." Rebecca cried through her whole speech, and then winked at me like she'd been right all along. 5 years later, we have a daughter named Ruth, who runs with flowers in her fist and shows me how joy can be loud. The foundation is in 5 cities. Sunday dinner at Patricia and Lawrence's house is a standing appointment. Big bowls of food, old stories, new photos, a family that remembers how close it came to breaking and chooses not to forget. But here's the thing. This isn't a fairy tale. It's messy and human, and not everyone gets the ending I got. I know what some of you are thinking, and it's fair. Was it okay that I lied to a kind family for money? Does desperation make deception understandable, or does it just make it easier to forgive yourself? If a billionaire hires a woman to play a part because he's tired of his mother's questions, do we hold him to a different standard than we would anyone else? Do you think that's fair? I keep my grandmother's green dress at the front of my closet. On hard days, I touch the fabric and remind myself I paid him back every dollar because survival got me through a door, but truth kept me in the room. I remind myself I didn't get better by pretending it never happened. I got better by telling the story out loud, which is what I'm doing here with you. So let me put it to you straight to you, because this is where your voice matters. If it were you, 3 days from eviction, sheriff coming bank accounts, frozen reputation shattered, would you take the deal? Would you sign the NDA and put on the dress and play the part for $25,000 if it meant breathing again? And if you would you believe a relationship that starts as a contract can become real, or do the cracks always show? Where do you draw the line between survival and honesty, between control and care, between money and meaning? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Argue with me, argue with each other respectfully. Tell me where I'm wrong. Tell me where you see yourself in this. If you've ever done something you're not proud of just to keep going, tell me what it cost and what it gave you. Share this with someone who needs a second chance story today. Hit like so more people find it. Subscribe if you want more true life stories told without the neat edges, because life doesn't usually give us neat edges, you know what I mean. And stick around, because the next one is going to test every rule you think you have about love, money, and the truth we tell to survive.